Welcome back to Roland Martin Unfiltered. I'm your guest host, Dr. Walker. So let's go into our next story. After 6 hours of deliberation, a California jury convicts a man on trial for the murder of Grammy-winning rapper Nipsey Hussle.
The decision's going to come down today.
About 30 minutes.
Yeah. So
Wednesday, a first-degree murder, 2 counts of attempted voluntary manslaughter, and possession of a firearm in a 2019 slaying. Holden Jr. faces life in prison. The Los Angeles County jury found Holden not guilty of attempted murder against 2 men who were wounded in the 2019 shooting attack. So let's go to our panel about this issue, this tragedy. It relates to Nipsey Hussle. So let's go to, we have Scott back. Scott, what are your thoughts about the jury's decision?
Interesting that you have a conviction for the shooting of Nipsey Hussle, I think, and then he was not guilty on the other 2. There may have been more than one shooter, I'm not sure, but whatever the beef was, the black on black crime, the guns, it all comes into play. And Nipsey Hussle was just an incredible rapper that was committed to the community and committed to the music, well-loved, beloved, and just a tragedy all around.
Yeah, and certainly anytime we lose a life, and I think it's important, any lose their life, particularly, we see violence in the black community is important, to find a way to prevent it. So I want to talk to Robert next about the jury's decision. We talk about Nipsey Hussle. Not only is he a rap artist, he was an entrepreneur. I think that's another thing we would neglect to talk about. So, Robert, what are your thoughts about the jury's decision?
Well, I think it's the right decision, and I think this also has to play into our conversation nationally about gun violence in America. We've all talked about the Highland Park shooting in Chicago, or in the suburbs of Chicago this weekend. What people haven't talked about is the 85 other people who got shot in Chicago last weekend, the 25 other people who died in Chicago last weekend. When we have this conversation about gun control in this country, about gun violence, and then people who are dying, the big mass shootings where it's just some confused white kid, as they like to portray them, shooting a bunch of people gets all the headlines. We do these deep dives into the psychological profiles of the Uvalde shooter, of the Buffalo shooter, of the Highland shooter, of the Parkland shooter, etc. We talk about whether or not we should ban certain weapons in response to it. We have none of that when it comes to to gun violence in black and urban communities around the country. And we have to have a real conversation on how do we stop these things from happening. Look at what happened in Philadelphia on 4th of July weekend, where you had a shooting there, which cleared out the festivities there. There were shootings in New York. There was a planned mass shooting in Richmond, Virginia, that was thwarted by law enforcement. We have to start taking gun violence holistically, not just mass shootings, not just urban shootings and somehow separating them, but saying that we need a concrete United States policy that stops dozens of or hundreds of people every weekend in this country from being shot and dozens from dying every weekend. We look at fatality numbers in America on just a regular weekend that are very close to what you see in war-torn regions around the world. If the United States was not in charge of the United Nations would be sending peacekeepers to America to stop us from killing each other. We have to find out what is causing this and how to break this down in a certain way. And as long as you have a gun lobby that controls at least one of the political parties in this country and a recalcitrance by the United States government to do anything about it, you're going to continue to see shootings like this and deaths every single weekend in America until we decide we're going to do something about it.
Yeah, so, Robert highlighted a couple points. First of all, obviously talked about the shooting what happened in my hometown of Philadelphia a few days ago. And then, I think you hit on a really important point in terms of gun violence. Like, this is a public health issue. It isn't simply just a rural, urban or rural suburban issue. There's a challenge that we deal with as Americans. And I think statistically we look at the United States per capita has more guns per capita anywhere else in the world, right? So this is a issue of violence and also in terms of access. And there's, like I said, certainly is an issue we look at a macro level and address it as a public health issue. Lauren, I just want to kind of go to you for a second. Robert highlighted a lot of really overarching important points, but this issue about Nipsey Hussle and this jury verdict. What are your thoughts about it?
Yeah, I think the jury made the right decision. It's sort of weird to me that this guy's name is Eric Holder. I noticed that, our our friends on the right are having fun with that by putting the guy's name in every headline they can put him in. Obviously, he has no relation to Eric Holder, the former Attorney General of the United States, but it was a sad situation to see Nipsey Hussle go because he was really an inspirational character. He's an entrepreneur. He's a great rapper. And it's just a huge tragedy and a senseless tragedy. And, you know, with regard to this idea that, you know, certainly we do have to talk about guns differently. I'm not sure why we need people like Bill O'Reilly sitting around trying to act like he wants to make the face of gun violence, always make the face of gun violence black and male, which is why he's so ticked off about what Governor Pritzker said in Illinois after the Highland Park shooting. But, I mean, let's be real. These shootings where we have assault weapons that would be used in a theater of war, where people senselessly blow people away at Bible study and at the grocery store and, you know, little kids at school, that's a different level of crazy than two guys beefing that shoot each other in the city. I mean, so this idea that, I mean, these two parents that were murdered in Highland Park and their little kid is left to fend for himself, and thank goodness there's a GoFundMe out there to hit $2 million. But stuff like that and kids getting killed in their school is completely crazy. The fact that we accept this as the normal state of play in this country right now is disturbing. And the fact that we accept it as the normal state of play in any city on any weekend is disturbing. So, but until the federal government gets serious, these cities really can't do anything about it because the guns are going to come in unless the federal government does something to try and at least stop the tide in a country that has over 350 privately held guns. I mean, the fact that Robert Patillo can reach to his right to his assault weapon and show it on TV is interesting. I mean, the fact that I've inherited 5 or 6 firearms is interesting. I mean, we just act like this is all very normal. This is not normal behavior, and it shouldn't be seen as normal behavior. I mean, this is not normal that we get up and see on TV, you know, 19 kids murdered in their classroom. And we already saw it happen in Sandy Hook.
Right. And
we sit up here and act like this stuff is just, you know, is just another story for another day. And I'm not understanding why we can't get to a level. I think part of it is a failure of the Democratic Party, quite frankly, a huge messaging failure. Because if you can't make messaging out of 19 kids getting murdered in their classroom, if you can't message against the party that thinks that that's just okay and normal, that's a problem. That's a huge messaging problem that you really shouldn't be having, particularly after Sandy Hook. So there's a lot to say here, but obviously to get back to Nipsey Hussle, that was a terrible shame that he died like that, and at least somebody's being brought to justice.
Yeah, Lauren, you hit on a lot of really important points, and it kind of connected with what you and Robert said. The other thing is we sometimes we couch this as an urban issue, right? So, you know, on the right, that's how they talk about it. And obviously, the play on Eric Holder's name is an example of some of these issues we deal with racism in America. But it's important to note as it relates to guns, suicides, the rate at which it happens in white rural communities, because we talk a lot about urban communities because obviously a lot of networks are located in these larger metropolitan areas.
Right.
But gun violence, in terms of suicides by guns in white rural communities, is a problem that the country needs to talk about and figure out also a solution as we kind of just talk about, like I said, issues just in black and brown communities.
All right, folks, back to that roll my unfiltered video in just one moment. How about sushi?
I just had sushi for lunch yesterday.
How about tacos?
Automatic emergency braking, one of 6 advanced safety features standard on every 2022 Chevy Equinox. Find new technology, find new roads. Chevrolet.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Hey, Black, I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?